was a great idea. However, I have been reluctant to do it because it's a trip down memory lane for me, and that era was probably one of the hardest times of my life, and probably helped form a lot of my worldview, and it made me who I am. So, I graduated high school in 1990. I was 17 when I graduated. I turned 18 in September of 1990. I was born in 1972. So it was an exciting time for me just because, I was becoming an adult, and I was excited about living on my own. Finally being free of my parents. My parents got divorced, and so my household was kind of, I forgot to turn the AC off tonight. Sorry about that. It shouldn't be on long because it's not that hot out, but anyway, I was excited. I remember being excited about getting out of school, and I really was. I had a relatively decent job in high school because I worked for a carpet cleaning company that broke child labor laws for me. They allowed me to work later than they were legally supposed to. So we would clean Arby's restaurants and banks. We would close. He did not clean houses. They cleaned commercial buildings, and so we would have to wait until the bank closed or the restaurant closed to be able to go in and clean. So I was working at night, going to school during the day, and so because I was from such a poor family, it was hard for me to want to break free from making money and go to college. So I decided to take a year off before I went to college, and so that's what I did. And in that time, of course, I went kind of crazy, wild, just being able to get out of my parents' home. I got my own apartment for the first time, and it was just like an efficiency. It was like a room with a kitchenette and a bathroom. I mean, it was small, very small, but it was mine, and I didn't have any siblings or parents there, And at the time, there may have been internet, but it was like the military was using it, or no normal person had the internet. Most normal people did not have a cell phone. Cell phones were invented, but they were not mainstream yet. There was no digital music. Cassettes were still being sold, but CDs were kind of taken over. And it was great. I think I had cassettes and CDs at the time, and most cars had a cassette player and a CD player, both. So, because most people had both, and you would go to record stores to buy music, you would go to Blockbuster to rent movies instead of like watching them on Netflix. There was no Netflix. It was just, it did seem like a simpler time, but when and I've made a video about this recently about people saying it's so much harder today. I remember how hard it was when I first got out of school and I was cleaning carpet and trying to pay rent and trying to pay my car payment and trying to pay my other bills, because at the time I was using credit cards to buy clothes, and it was hard. And I remember like thinking, will I ever be able to buy a house? Probably all the thoughts that if you're younger that you're having today. It's just about being young. Life is hard. Now again, I'm not arguing that some things are harder. Some things are harder today, but some things are easier. If you just Google how many American women have OF accounts and see how much money they're making, it's unbelievable. Truly unbelievable. It's a staggering number of women that are doing it. That was not an option back in the day. The amount of young people streaming that have YouTube channels, that was not an option back in the day. So there are some things that are easier. There are some things that I'll grant you are harder. But overall, I think every generation has it hard. And certainly, as I discussed in the other video, our ancestors had it much, much harder with no electricity and no indoor plumbing. My God. You know, it's interesting because I think about like before industrialization, before agriculture, like we really were like hunter-gatherers. Yeah, told you it would shut off quick. And like I think we were like in bands of probably 5 to 20 people, and we had a close-knit society of people that we lived with, and we hunted, you know, food, animals, berries, plants, and you know, we obviously made it through that era. I mean, we survived. We survived enough to get here. And so there's times that I think that maybe it was actually better. Now, we probably died when we were 35, but while we were alive, I'm sure we had moments that were great, you know. The days that we had a big deer that we were feasting on for days, sitting around a campfire just singing songs with our family, or, you know, just being with each other, you know, not having jobs. Our jobs were surviving. But society has become something entirely different. We now do these weird jobs. You know, we sit in cubicles, or we serve food at restaurants, or we fix air conditioners, we pave roads. I don't know, it's life has become so different, and but we live longer, and we have more comfort. We have moments of comfort. But whether it's better or not, I don't know. But at any rate, in alcohol, even though I wasn't old enough. But luckily, I never really got too involved with alcohol because the few times I got really hammered, the next day I would just feel awful. And because I had a job, it's like it would affect the way I could perform. It would affect the way I felt. And so early on, I felt the negative effects of alcohol, so I never really let alcohol get a hold of me. Cigarettes did. I thought I was cool. I used to love Miami Vice, and in that show, Don Johnson smoked. And so he was like the guy that I idolized because he was like a studly dude, and like he was a cop, and he drove a cool car, and he just had a real mystique about him. And I wanted to be a guy like that. I wanted to be mysterious and admired. I wanted that. I wanted the attention of women. But I can tell you that, like, whenever I would drive around, the freedom of it was just you in a car. No one could get a hold of you. And it was just a different feeling. Now there's no escape. We carry these phones around with us, and we're just readily available. Now again, it has its advantages for like safety. Like if you get in a car crash, you can just call somebody. And if you want to know where you're going, you have navigation on your phone. There's some great conveniences about it, but the freedom aspect, the feeling of independence, I think is different than it was when I was young, because you just never have that feeling of being alone. I don't think. I know I don't have it like I used to, but certainly no social media. And I do believe that as a net effect, and so I look at things in life as like, you can find good and bad about everything, but I look at the overall net effect of something when I consider it, like social media. Yes, I can see the positive of the connectivity, but I also see the negativity of everybody has a microphone, and there's so many bots and madness and wicked people. We're exposed to so much. I believe social media is a net negative on society, and that is why I do not have it. Now, I have this channel, but when I say social media, I'm talking about Facebook, Instagram, things where you like post your thoughts or your pictures of your food, or read the news, or things like that. I don't know. I look at YouTube as something different, even though technically I believe it is social media, and certainly I'm giving my views of the world here. But again, I don't have any of the other stuff. I do have a LinkedIn because it's a requirement for my job, but the only thing I post on there are my houses that are for sale. Now you can find me there and you can message me there, but at the end of the day, if you look at what I post, it's just the homes that I have for sale. That's it. Nothing else. Not even. And when I post the home, I just post the link to the home. I don't post, hey, come look at this home. I just post the home. But I just don't do any of that other, because I don't agree with it, and I don't want to be a part of it because I think it's a negative. The same thing with sports, professional sports. I don't watch them. I don't buy the hats or shirts or go to the games because I think they are a net negative on society. I think they have hurt society more than helped, primarily because the amount of young men who are out there playing basketball, dreaming of being in the NBA, and you have 200,000 kids fighting for 100 jobs, and because they're playing basketball all day long trying to get in the NBA, 190,000, 200,000 of them will never get in, and they never focused on studies or anything else, and they basically end up in bad places because of it. So ultimately, same thing with NFL and all the other soccer, everything. Millions of kids are spending all their time fighting for a handful of jobs that they just will never get. And I also think that idolizing people, same with Hollywood, we idolize people that make unbelievable money. And I think that as a society, the way we allocate our money is wrong. I just think it is just not right. I think that, like, somebody playing professional sports, they would do it for $300,000 a year. Somebody that owned a sports team would do it for $1 million a year. But instead, they make billions and hundreds of millions through contracts with Nike. And while we pay school teachers $50,000 a year, social workers less than that, cops $50,000 a year, the firefighters, the people that really are out there saving lives, and we just allocate our money stupid as a society. And it's not because it's the way it has to be. It's because we as citizens support these industries that destroy our societies. If we didn't go to the games, if we didn't watch them, if we didn't buy the gear, it would fix itself. But we can't break ourselves or our addictions to do what we know is right. We know it's wrong. Same thing with Tom Cruise making $30, $40, $50 million to make one movie. I like the guy, he's a good actor, but he's not worth that. He's not worth what we pay 1,000 nurses. He's not. No one is. LeBron James is not worth 1,000 school teachers' salaries per year. He's just not. And so those are the things that I personally do to try to walk the talk. But these are things that have got progressively worse that weren't really as bad in the 90s. The one good thing about the internet, like, we have access to great information. We can pick and choose what we want to watch, where used to all we had was TV, and you had a few channels to choose from, and if something you liked wasn't on, well, there was just nothing to watch. But sometimes, just to watch something, you would watch something that you didn't really care for. Where now you have access to unlimited information. Whatever you want to watch right now, you can find. It's just like with music. Whatever song you want to hear, you can watch it right now on YouTube and listen to the song you want to hear. Where before you had to wait for that song to come on the radio or go to the record store and buy the album. You had no way to listen to that song. You could only I can't wait till I can hear that song again. That's what it was like in the 90s. Or oh God, I can't wait to save the money to go buy that record so I can hear this song as much as I want to hear it. So that part is, that is certainly an improvement. So there has been a lot that is worse now, but there were things that were better than, and I think it was just about the simplicity. I will say this too, certainly the roads were different. Driving was not as aggressive back then. I think people just respected each other a little bit more back then. They respected the rules of the road a little more back then. Where now it's there's not a day goes by that I don't have somebody that tailgates me. I mean, drives aggressively close to me on these roads. It's bad. And I'm in Indiana. I'm not in LA or New York or Chicago where the traffic is even worse. But I think that just had to do with life being a slower pace, and I think that the aspirations, because there was no social media showing us these fake lives of influencers, we aspired for just we didn't aspire to have private jets. I think we had more realistic expectations. We really did just want a decent place to live and wanted a decent job where we didn't have to spend a bunch of money. We didn't want to be I'm sure a lot of people still had hoop dreams and wanted to be uber rich, but I think the majority of people did not, and I don't think kids were exposed to oh my god, that was my elbow. Kids were not exposed to what they're exposed to today. And I think a lot of it too, if you look at the number of alternative lifestyles, and I mean anything other than the heterosexual man-woman relationship, the numbers have exploded because I think, again, because of social media. And I think because, again, as young people, everybody wants to be different. Social media has made being normal a negative. Where I believe in the 90s, everybody just wanted to be normal. I don't think we were out there trying to say, how can I be different? Now, again, yes, it happened, but not on such a large scale where today I think the majority of kids are out there looking for ways to get attention. And I don't think it was necessarily so much the case when I was younger. I just don't remember it that way. And maybe it's just because I wasn't that person. But yeah, that was different. I think families were more important back then. I think families were more traditional as far as people still, a lot more people went to church and a lot more people had meals at home with their families. I think more people aspired to have children back then, where certainly today less and less people are having kids, including me. But I think I was definitely in the minority. In my generation, the majority of people had kids. But when I spoke of that being a hard era for me, it had to do with that's when I got my heart broke. And I think that's when I just internalized and said, that's it. I just couldn't take a chance on that happening to me. Back then, that was my mental response, that I would just not ever take a chance on that happening to me again, because it nearly destroyed me. And so I focused on myself, making myself a better person and making myself responsible. I wanted to be safe. I wanted to be healthy. I wanted to be financially secure. And so that's the stuff I focused on. I just became a workaholic. And I mean, as I sit here today at 52 years old, I don't regret the path I chose. I don't sit here and wish that I had kids here with me. I really don't. But that doesn't mean that you won't regret it if you don't do it. It's just, it didn't happen for me. And I think I look around at the world and what it's become today, and I know what I had to go through to get here, and I just I just didn't want to put somebody else through that. I didn't want to make another human being have to go through what I went through. And even though I think I could help, I just knew it was a risk. I also lost a younger brother, and I watched how it devastated my mom. And that happened right at the end of the 90s in the year 2000. I was 28 and my brother was 18, and my mom to this day has never been the same. And I think I just didn't, at that point, I didn't want to take the chance of loving something that much and then losing it. And, but those are the things that really affected me, the broken heart and then losing my brother. I think those two extreme life experiences made me who I am and pushed me to become a financial success. And again, I'm not a billionaire. I don't have a jet. But I am very comfortable financially. I never have to work again if I don't want to. But it's funny that when you don't have to work, you almost want to work for just a sense of purpose, just to feel useful in society. And so because I don't have a family of my own, that I get my sense of purpose from helping the world, having a job that does help people and doing a good job at it is where I get my sense of fulfillment. Also helping animals. I think animals is where I get the love that I would get from a kid, and I know it's different. Believe me, I'm not saying that my dogs love me like my kids would, or that I love my dogs like as much as I would a kid. I know it's different, but I just am saying that they give me so much love that I am definitely not without love in my life. And helping them makes me feel, because they're helpless creatures, we've made a world where they can't survive without us, because they would die on these streets, they would get hit by cars, or they can't. We made this a human world. We took it away from every other creature. And that part, I wish we would have designed society differently. I think another thing is music. Music has become very aggressive. And we did go through a phase of militant rap when I was younger, but I think it really has become songs like WAP. I don't want to say what it stands for, but I think most of you know what it stands for. Where women will actually, it's one thing when men were talking about gangster stuff, but then you have women talking about really horrible, aggressive content that is, it's influential in young kids' lives. And I just, I see so much, I'll watch some things on YouTube, but I saw something the other day where there was these three 10 to 12-year-old boys with big bags that they were shoplifting from CVS, and they were the store locked them in because they're you're not walking out with all this stuff. And these little kids were they were saying the most extreme stuff to these adults that it just was shocking. But that stuff just did not happen. I think there was a better understanding of the dynamic of being a kid and being an adult, where we've lost some of that today. There is just, and again, I blame that on the culture. I think the music industry, social media, like civilization, us being civilized. Like there is so many uncivilized people in the world. They live among us, people. They do. We have monsters among us. Way more monsters in the world today than there were in the 90s. Not that there weren't monsters, because there were. But I just think the percentage of people that are monsters today is way higher than it was back then. I'm trying to just think of anything else that was really different, you know. I really just think kind of it's really like the changes that we've seen are like really technological. Which again, some of it I like. Like I like having a cell phone. I like, you know, I can make a call anywhere, outside, inside. Before we had telephones, but you had to be inside the house to use the telephone. You know, or you had to go to a payphone to use the payphone. It is nice being able to call anywhere, but we've lost that. We've lost a sense of freedom by having these things attached to us at all times. So it's like there's positive and negative. Music. I like the fact that we can just download music and find a song on YouTube and play it at any time. But at the cost of, by having that technology, we also have the corn with a P and all the madness and horrible stuff that is also comes along with the internet. It's like there was a saying, and I don't know, I can probably look it up real quick. Let me see if I can find this. It was a quote by John Adams. Democracy is only for a moral society. It's something like that. Let me see. Let me see if I can find this quote. Here it says, "Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. Morality and virtue are the foundation of our republic and necessary for a society to be free." And I have to agree with that, and I think that's why like school shootings, for example, they just weren't a thing. I mean, sure, they happen like sporadically here or there, but there was a day like in the 70s they like never happened, and now they're just like a constant occurrence. And why? It's because we've had a breakdown of morality. The right and wrong, what is right and wrong, or some of these kids have done this simply for attention, for the notoriety, because they just felt hopeless of any way of becoming. They wanted to be famous so bad, and in their mind there's no way to get there except doing something horrible like that to garner attention. And I think it's like, it may be why eventually America loses our right to bear arms, because our society is not moral enough to handle it. And that's why when John Adams said that our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people that were bound by a code of ethics, that we do not harm others. And I think we've lost that now. I hope maybe we could get it back before it breaks completely. And my gut tells tells me that we will. My gut tells me that we'll find a way to hold it together. That we will see that all of this, like, instead of like giving Grammys, we give a Grammy to the artist that wrote the song WAP. Where if we were a better society, we would shun a person that said those types of things. Now, we want freedom of speech. We want a person to be able to do that. But we don't want to live in a society that praises or uplifts a person that spreads filth and garbage to our kids. And if you're one of those people that's out there buying filth like that, you're supporting it. And that's what I mean about walking the talk. If so many people, claim to be Christians, yet they're doing things that they know that if Jesus is really real, that he would not want them doing it, but they do it anyway because they just say they believe, but they don't walk the talk. And I think that that's what we've lost. There is so much more hypocrisy in the world today than there has ever been. People claim to be virtuous, and yet then they go and do all these disgusting things. That has been a big change. I think people held themselves to a higher standard before. I think personal standards have declined. Walking in harmony with your beliefs has declined. People are more worried about judging others than judging themselves. And I think that we're going to have to find a way back to that. There's a saying that says, don't tell me about the speck in my eye until you take the plank out of your own eye. It's like, it's so true I think it's one of the biggest problems we have, and I spoke a little bit about that in my last video, was fixing yourself before you worry about trying to fix the world. But I believe that's the answer to how we find our way back to a good society, is everybody starts looking in the mirror instead of looking at everybody else. Look at yourself. What are you doing that you know you should not be doing? What are you supporting that you know is bringing bad upon society? What are you doing that you know you shouldn't be doing? And that's all we have to do. You just fix yourself, and we'll fix the world. I don't know that we want the 90s is the place we want to get back to. I don't really know what was the best era, but I do know that, like, for example, I don't want to live in a world without electricity. I just don't. But could I live in a world without email? Yeah, I could easily go back to not having email. I love to sit down and buy a card and write somebody a note and mail it to them. I love that. I love getting that type of mail. But, if I typed the same thing out and sent the exact same words in an email, it would mean less to somebody than just putting it in an envelope and putting a stamp on it and mailing it. I don't know why, but it just feels more intimate. I don't want to live in a world without indoor plumbing. I don't want to go back to having to go outside when it's 10 degrees outside and using the bathroom in an outhouse. I don't want to do that. But could I go back to a world without cell phones? Yeah, I could live in a world without cell phones. I could. Will we? No, that will never happen. I could community that I get from being a part of this with you all. But do I think it would help civilization? Probably. You know, I mean, I think my channel is pretty wholesome. You know, I do try to talk about things that try to help you guys. I do. I don't do anything. I don't do anything for clicks. I don't do anything for attention. You know, I give like my real estate advice. I give like life advice. I tell like stories about my life to try to help you guys learn from my mistakes or things that I've been through, and hope that you don't ever have to go through them. But I would gladly just go away just to fix the world. And I think the internet has been a net negative on society. I do. Sadly, it has. And it doesn't have to be. It's like, I remember having to, like, if I wondered, like, what year was the Civil War? Like, what year did the Civil War stop? Well, now I just Google it. But back then, I would look in an encyclopedia. I would go to the encyclopedia, the edition that had the Civil War, and I would, okay, I see what year, okay. And I would find the answer. You had to find the answers that you wanted in books, you know. So that part is positive, but again, like, all the, you know, the bad, the unbelievably horrible things that are out there on the internet today, they're there too. So, you know, again, I know we're not ever going backwards. We're gonna have the internet, we're gonna have cell phones, we're gonna have all this stuff, and we're gonna have the freedoms. But it's on us to control it. It's on us as consumers. We are in control. You know, people can make horrible, disgusting things, and the only way those people succeed is if we as consumers support it. If you're supporting bad things, you might as well just be the bad person doing it. You know, and that's where I feel like we as a society can turn back the clock on a lot of the bad by stop our support of the bad. We know right from wrong. We know what is good, what is evil, and we just have to stop being a part of the things that we know are wrong. And if we do that, we'll make the world a better place. We'll find a way to make it good in spite of all this stuff and all these temptations around us. And it doesn't take, like, we're never gonna alleviate every monster from the world. We're never gonna live in a utopia ever. But if the majority of us would just take a stand and say enough's enough, I'm not gonna live like that anymore. I'm not gonna do the things that I know are hurting society any longer. I'm gonna use my time, energy, money, and put them to helping others, helping animals, spending time with my family, you know, supporting music that it uplifts me and not brings me down. I'll watch shows that lift me up, not ones that bring me down. I won't support industries like strip clubs and pornography and all the things that we know are net negatives on society. But until then, we've just got to find a way to deal with this world and its madness. But I thank you guys for all being a part of this with me. You guys have been with me a long time. This channel has been a net positive in my life because of you guys. And I'm forever grateful. And thank you. Thank you for being here with me. Thank you for being here tonight. I'll see you on the next one.